So, I know not everyone got access to the infantry closed beta testing, but basically what Gaijin had was a bunch of infantry options with rifles and machine guns and whatnot, and then as far as vehicles went, they had a light vehicle like the Bradley, or infantry fighting vehicle, they had a tank like the Abrams, and then they have the Apache. And that fits, you know, pretty much all of the vehicles in War Thunder, except it doesn't. This leaves out any sort of fixed wing, besides drones, and I'm not counting drones, leaves out everything fixed wing, like the A-10, the Su-25, F-16s, and I bring this up because Gaijin, when they did the first infantry trailer, showed F-16s and Su-25s in the actual trailer, and so it kind of begs me to question, why did we not get a test with fixed-wing aircraft, and how is Gaijin going to implement that? I absolutely promise you guys that at some point, rather it be post-release to the live server, Gaijin, one way or the other, is going to make it where you can have fixed-wing aircraft in infantry battles. There's no way they're going to leave that big of a market just completely closed out. There are going to be too many people asking to run the A-10 and run the Su-25 and, you know, stuff like that. And it leaves the big question of, how are they going to implement that? Because obviously, you know, flying in sim is one thing, but when you have a player base that I'm going to imagine is mostly going to be ground RB players, I don't really think throwing them in air sim is going to be the best, you know, result. Also, I would imagine that a lot of just normal players don't really want to fly around in simulator. I don't necessarily hate simulator, and I thought it was perfect for the tanks, but as far as the helicopters, I mean, it was not terrible for the helicopters, but I don't think that'd be a very good implementation for aircraft. Obviously, it's pretty hard to be focusing on a million things alone when you're flying an A-10, but now also imagine you're having to worry about man pads, worry about enemy aircraft, enemy tanks, enemy light vehicles, obviously trying to find and locate infantry, not kill friendlies. And then also the big question is, how is Gaijin going to make it where infantry isn't going to get absolutely bodied by something like the A-10? Obviously, they gave pretty much every soldier access to a man pad. You did have to choose between that and an RPG, but there was at least a guaranteed chance that someone on your team had access to a man pad. Throughout the entire testing, I did not run into a single helicopter. I saw people spawn in them. I didn't get a chance to test out the man pad, sadly. I really wanted to. But it just, every time someone would spawn in, they'd either crash their helicopter, they'd make one rocket rush and crash, or they'd just be brought down by a Bradley or a BMP. There was not really an opportunity to get access and use the man pad. Now, this would change. Obviously, I think an A-10 will have higher survivability against anything. And if you guys haven't paid too much attention, you know, things like the A-10 and Su-25 are pretty capable of surviving man pads. I mean, just look at the A-10 in Iraq and Iran, and it was very hard to take down. Incredibly hard. And we even have footage of real life now of an F-18 surviving being hit by a man-pad. So, man-pads are not guaranteed kills, and I think if Gaijin were to add a whole massive scale battle, they'd have to include, like they have now, infantry, tanks, which they have, Bradley or, infantry fighting vehicles, which they have. All of that can be implemented in, a sim setting. But I think helicopters, I think fixed-wing aircraft probably should be, introduced as in realistic battle game mode, or realistic battle controls. And they can obviously change that if they need to, or change how you can select sim or ground RB or infantry realistic battles and infantry simulator battles, depending on which one you want. And they'll have to introduce some form of actual SAM system, you could have like a LAVAD, or you could have a Strela. Anyways, let me know what your guys' thoughts are down below on the introduction of fixed-wing aircraft with infantry. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.